It's Friday and I'm on fire, and I know that I'll break your heart, and I'm sorry, I'm just so tired. These cars are just it, so won't you cuff my hands? And this world is all mine, so won't you crash my ride?
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. I haven't live streamed in ages. So today I am talking about content. You spent ages working on your content, and maybe it was a book or a research report, an event, an influencer interview. You took the time to line up those resources, connect with people. You invested time and money in this content. So why is it sitting on a single landing page? That's often what happens. We invest so much time on creating these amazing events where we have multiple panel speakers there, or a big webinar, or we spend a year writing a book, and then it just sits there and you're just not doing it justice. I get it though. You get burnt out. You do. You get burnt out after creating this massive content. You're like, okay, the hard work is done, but you really need to get it out there in every way possible, because all of that time and money you spent on that content is just sitting there. Content creation should be about 20% of your content marketing time. And then 80% should be spent on distribution. And repurposing is just another form of distribution. So, content doesn't matter if no one is seeing it, right? You could create amazing content, but it doesn't serve anyone if it's just sitting on your website collecting dust. So today we're going to be talking about the 6 types of content that you should always repurpose. I'm also going to dig into what you can turn all of that content into and some tools that make it easier. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm going to put me in the little corner so you can see this better. First things first, let's talk about some questions you need to ask, some things that you need to consider when you are creating content in the first place. So always think of content repurposing like a funnel. Consider your content from the awareness phase all the way down to consideration. So awareness content could be your social media, for example, repurposing that big event into social media posts, or shorts on YouTube, or reels on Instagram. Those would be more awareness. It's your social followers and people who find you through hashtags or the algorithm, and you're building your awareness that way. You're building your audience. But then when you go a little bit deeper, you might need to be finding people who are trying to solve a certain problem. So they're seeking out a solution to their problem. They've identified, I need a dog groomer because I just got a puppy that has long hair. So they might start looking at solutions to that, like what kind of haircuts should this kind of dog have or whatever. So as they start asking those kinds of questions on search, that's when your content needs to pop up. So you'll want to create some content to answer those questions and show them how you solve those problems. So those might be how-to blogs or tutorial videos or listicles that explain like the best places in your local area to get your dog's haircut. I don't know why I chose that. I do all B2B, so I don't know. I have 3 dogs. I guess that's why. Okay, so start there. And then when you get down to the consideration phase, you'll want to look at more lead generation, lead magnets, stuff that kind of content that shows you know what you're doing and it can prove it. So bringing in user-generated content, testimonials, um, and case studies and success stories. So, but you can do all of that with what we're talking about today. Next, what kind of content can you create to move people through the sales funnel? So, this is what I was talking about with awareness through consideration. This is a question you'll want to ask. What kind of content can you create to increase your email list? So, I'll give you an example. I have a couple high ranking blog posts on my website that are for quarterly marketing plans. So I'm already getting hundreds of people reading those. I need to look at what can I use? What can I repurpose to turn into a lead magnet so I can grow my list through this? So I was like, okay. I already created an e-course where I had a template for a quarterly marketing plan in it. So I might as well just take that little piece and repurpose it for a lead magnet. And within the first week, I had 100 new subscribers thanks to that lead magnet. So that's something that you'll want to consider too when you're thinking about repurposing. And then what kind of content can you create to increase your know, like, and trust factor? So, all of this can be repurposed. Let's get into the types of content that you should use to repurpose. Keynote presentations. So let's look at that. What can you turn a keynote presentation into? You spent time creating this presentation or this talk, and you spent time building relationships with people to be able to present it. You might as well repurpose it in as many ways as possible. So take that keynote presentation and turn it into blogs. Every different section within that presentation can be turned into a new blog post. P articles. So that means that they are articles that you would pitch to another blog or another publication. So you get to borrow other people's audiences. Photography. Usually, when you're doing keynote presentations, there's some sort of photographer or videographer at the event, and you can reuse the photographs and the video footage that they have created, I don't know, that seems like the wrong word, at the event for your own marketing. You can bring it into your social media. You can add it to your media kit. You can use it for all sorts of stuff. So take those, if they recorded the video, even better, because you can turn that into YouTube videos or shorts. Turn the major points into infographics. You can take this whole keynote topic and turn it into an ebook that would be maybe like 20 pages. And then social media posts for everything. Every single piece of content that you create, you could create at least 5 social media posts for those. So if you did not have a videographer at the event, you can still do YouTube videos and shorts. You'll just need to look at it from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to be creating something net new with that. So you look at that presentation and break it down into 3 to 5 minute clips, outlines, so you can create short videos from it. And then those 3 to 5 minute YouTube videos that you can cut into shorts. And at the end of this, I'll get into what tools you can use to do this super quickly. Next is webinars. So when you do a webinar, it's usually between 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So you can create a ton of 3 to 5 minute clips, just any of those little sound bites or really on point tips or tutorials that you talk about in those webinars, cut those out for YouTube. You can take any sound bites that were just amazing in that webinar and create audiograms around this. Now, I do this for clients all the time. I take their webinars and I turn it into 6 months worth of content. Social media posts. You'll, of course, want to create probably around 10 social media posts to promote it before the webinar, but after the webinar, you can create a ton of social media posts to push it out to for the on-demand version of that webinar. You can still be generating leads even after it's gone live. People will still watch the replay. Create emails around it. Now, I like to send out about 4 emails before I do a webinar to promote it, and then maybe 1 or 2 after to promote the on-demand version. But the topics that you talked about within that webinar, those can be their own newsletter topics. You can also take clips and turn it into podcast episodes. So one thing that I've done before is I'll take a section of a webinar that was on a very specific topic, and I'll just pull that WAV file, and then I'll create a new intro and outro, and I've got myself a 30-minute podcast episode from just one segment of the webinar. So you can probably create about 3 podcast episodes from a typical webinar, depending on how many topics you talk about. And then for anything that you could create a podcast episode out of, you can also create a blog post out of it. So anything that's a specific topic, boom, create a blog post out of it. And then you can cross promote all of these things. So if you have a podcast episode, you can embed it into that blog post. So everything should really work together. It's like a spider web. Digital PR is another great thing when it comes to webinars because you're doing partnerships and you're working with other people. So you can cross promote your webinars in other people's lists, and you can partner with other influencers or subject matter experts. So you guys can grow each other's lists and grow each other's audiences, and also build relationships. I love webinars. I love working with other product companies or service providers on webinars. Next step would be video interviews. So for a video interview, you can turn that into blog posts. I like to outline my video interviews into 3 specific topics. So it's really easy and like a no-brainer on how it works. So I'll have 3 things that people are going to learn, and then I'll outline those 3 things and interview the person on those. So each one of those 3 topics can be their own blog posts, their own podcast episodes just by pulling the WAV files, and their own longer form video clips. You can also break down those video clips into shorter 2-3 minute video clips for more consumable bite-sized video. So you can essentially get at least 20 pieces of video content out of a video interview if you're doing shorts, longer form videos, and then video clips. Partnerships, because you are partnering with a subject matter expert or an influencer. So it will amplify the reach of this content because it's going out to their list and their social media as well as your own. Audiograms for any great sound bites. Social media for a video interview, I would say if you're structuring it in the 3 topic outline like I do, you could probably get about 30 social media posts out of that, and it's not going to be repetitive. It'll be all net new stuff. Emails for all of this stuff that goes out. Every single new piece of content can have its own email. In a book, consider reverse repurposing, where you take these video interviews and you compile them together and take quotes from them. Like, let's say you are doing a subject matter expert video series on AI, on artificial intelligence. You can take these clips and the little nuggets that you're learning from each of these influencers and write a book on it, and you have a ton of expert quotes that can be included in that. Podcasts. So for my own content marketing, I have a podcast first approach. So if you've followed me ever, then you know that I talk a lot about core content. And my core content is podcasts. It started off as live streams because that's what I knew. I was comfortable on video. But it turned out my podcast was way more popular. So if you're not listening to it, it's the Tiny Marketing Show. But I start off with a video interview with an influencer for my podcast, knowing that it's going to be a podcast first. So with this, you can turn it into audiograms, social media posts, emails, video clips. So I work with Sylvia Pino, and she edits all of my podcast episodes, the videos included in that podcast episode. And she creates about 20 videos per podcast. So pretty impressive. You could also do show notes pages, which you should, so you can get some more SEO juice out of your podcasts. You can compile multiple episodes together into a best of episode, compile topics together for a guide. So you're interviewing all of these influencers. You might as well compile similar topics into one thing for a bigger guide. Use your podcast to advertise your own sales and content. So if you're on Buzzsprout, that's where my podcast is. You can have before roll ads, after roll ads, and mid-roll ads. So all of those I use to promote my own services. So I have promo codes to get certain services right there in that podcast. You might as well use that. People are listening. Advertise your own stuff. You're your own business. You can create longer form blog posts from these as well. Partnerships, because you're interviewing an influencer or subject matter expert, and digital PR. If you have something really great that comes up, you can create an article quoting the influencer and pitch it to other publications. Books. You can create social media from books. I just worked with a client who wrote this amazing book, and we created an editorial calendar of over 100 social media posts and ideas and like LinkedIn newsletters for this book. And it was just a no-brainer. She has this amazing book. You might as well repurpose it. You can also create emails for honestly every one of those social media posts that I put in the editorial calendar could also be used for an email. Blog posts. There's a ton of content in there. You can take sections of your book and make them blog posts all on their own. And then the call to action could be to buy the book. Remember, everything is a funnel. Your content should always be thought of in a funnel. How do we move people through to sales? And how do we move people to converting? Your book can be turned into a video series. You have some very specific topics within that book. So how can you turn that into a video series or a podcast? For the example of the book that I turned into an editorial calendar, as I was reading it the entire time, I was like, this would be an amazing podcast. It'd be so interesting to hear people talking about this topic and like arguing their points and teaching tips on it. So a lot of times, her book is not the only one that could be turned into a podcast, and you'd use that mid-roll ad to advertise your book. Or it could be, title of your blog and sponsored by your book. It's really, it makes so much sense to do. And your book could obviously become a keynote presentation too. You can go to events, conferences, webinars, all of that stuff, and create presentations to promote your book, but also teach. I'm always a teach first and education first kind of marketer. Next is research reports. So I work with a lot of clients actually on repurposing their research reports because it takes so much time and effort to do one. You're surveying so many people, and it's really great insights, and it's all original research. So you got to reuse that in as many ways as possible. Digital PR is a huge thing for this because you can pitch this information to so many publications, and it'll get you a bunch of backlinks for one thing. And it'll get you a lot of name recognition too as your digital PR efforts grow from this research report. While we're talking about that, it would also be interesting to be a guest on podcasts to explain the original research results that you got. So it'll give you a lot of digital PR in that way too. Guest podcasting, publications, pitching to publications, doing partner webinars where you can present your research findings. There's so much juice within a research report. Turning it into infographics, that's like a no-brainer because when you're presenting data like this, it's so much easier to visualize it when it's an actual visual. Webinar roundtables. If you present your research report to some influencers or subject matter experts, it'd be super interesting to have a roundtable where you can show people this is like you guys can talk about your opinions on the research findings. Events, going and becoming a speaker at events and presenting the research. Blogs, obviously. There's so much good information that comes out of a research report. You can write a ton of blogs about it. Email for every single one of these pieces. Social media for anything that's slightly interesting. A podcast series would be really interesting to do if you put together an editorial calendar where you're telling a full story through a series of, let's say, 10 podcast episodes. That I would tune in for. And a workshop would be really cool too. If your research report uncovered something that would be interesting or helpful for people to do, turning it into a workshop would be great. Okay, tools that I use. Descript is a great video editing tool and it makes it easy to repurpose. So you can put that video interview or your webinar MP4 into script and you can quickly turn it into 3 to 5 minute clips. You can turn it into shorts, reels, TikToks. You can turn it into an audiogram, all with the same tool. And it'll also export your transcripts, which makes it really easy to do. You can then take those transcripts and turn them into blog outlines. Actually, let's skip over to ChatGPT because what you could do is you could take that transcript, find a portion of it, copy and paste it into ChatGPT and ask them to create an outline for a blog based off of that. Easy peasy. So Pod Squeeze, you can actually connect it to your podcast RSS feed and it will create transcripts, show notes pages, blog posts, social media posts, email copy, and it will pull all of the resources you mentioned in that podcast episode for you. It makes it super easy. Canva is amazing because you can have your brand guidelines right in there, and then you can quickly, like minutes, create new content that's on brand. I love the docs because that's how I create my e-courses is I just write all of my stuff in a doc and then it automatically, I just hit a button and it turns it into a presentation. Then I can record it right in Canva and then upload it to my course. Easy peasy. Another great thing about Canva taking more of an AI initiative to it is you can use ChatGPT and put in your transcript, for example. Ask it to create 15 social media posts, edit them so it fits your voice, put it in a spreadsheet, and then you can use there's a tool in Canva where you can create all of your social media graphics with custom content from that spreadsheet with one click. Content at scale is great for long form SEO content. So if you spent the time to do some research and create a great outline, put it in content at scale and it'll create a 3,000 word blog post in a couple of minutes. But make sure to edit it. You want to make sure to fact check and you want to make sure to change out the intro and the outro and any hook and close per paragraph so that it really sounds like you and the content is good. Because, like, if it's not adding value, who cares, right? You want to make sure that it's on brand for you, it's fact checked, and it adds value. But this will help you do it so much faster. So, those are the basic tools that I use. Now, for a VIP day, I just want to tell you a little bit about this. I have a flash sale going on just this week, and it's for a VIP day. And I will be repurposing one of your core pieces of content all in one day. So basically, you hand over your ebook or your webinar, and then by the end of the day, you'll have about 3 months worth of content. So I wanted to dig into this a little bit. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the outline or the sales page. So you can go to sarahnoelblock.com/VIP-day to order it. But normally I don't offer VIP days. This week until Friday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'm offering this one. And I'm going to take your core or your pillar content, like we talked about today, these types of pieces, and turn it into at least 12 pieces of content. So this is how it works. I'm going to scan down here. You send me your core content. In the first hour of the VIP day, I will create an editorial calendar for you. I'll send it to you and you prioritize what you want to get done first. I spend the next 4 to 5 hours creating that content for you. By the end of the day, you'll have an entire quarter's worth of content. So head on over to this page if you want to order it. I'll also put it in the comments. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments, and I will stay here for a few minutes off video and answer them for you. All right, so I am going to remove myself from the screen, but I will stay here for just a couple minutes and allow you to ask any questions that you have, and I'll add this link to the comments. Thank you.